The Galactic Empire's banners hung heavy in the polluted air, crimson sigils cast against the gray steel skyline of Nemeris Prime. Troopers patrolled the walkways with deliberate menace, their boots clicking in perfect rhythm. Drones hummed overhead, scanning faces, measuring heart rates, looking for signs of sedition. The city was quiet, too quiet. A compliance born not from peace, but from fear. Elira Voss walked briskly past a checkpoint, her eyes cast low, her credentials already in hand. The trooper scanned them without a word. She didn't flinch when his visor lingered on her for a moment too long. She had learned how not to flinch. She worked as a language archivist, officially. Unofficially, she translated intercepted Imperial broadcasts for the local underground. A phrase here, a tone there. It wasn't much. But it mattered. The resistance didn't need heroes. It needed quiet hands in quiet places. The apartment she returned to each night was modest, its furniture arranged with disciplined precision, like everything else in her life. On one wall hung a holoframe, dark and still, inactive. On another, a data terminal hidden beneath a panel of etched wood. She activated it with a small touch. A message blinked. Intel confirms raid route changed. They're sweeping the Outer East. No warning. Tonight. T. She stared at the screen for a moment longer than necessary. Outer East was full of displaced civilians. Refugees, unregistered laborers, political ghosts too quiet to be counted. She couldn't warn them all. She couldn't save them. But she could try. She moved swiftly, packing only what she needed. A field comlink. 3 data capsules. 1 coded implant embedded in her arm. She left the rest behind. The holoframe flickered to life as she passed, catching the tail end of a recording, a man's voice, warm but distant. Always remember, you are my constant, my calm. She didn't stop. That voice belonged to a man who hadn't been home in 16 months. General Kale Voss hadn't wanted to leave her. War never asks for permission. Across a system and a half, aboard the dreadnought Resolute Ember, Kale stood at the edge of the command deck, unmoving as data scrolled across the air before him. Reports of pirate skirmishes, border provocations, imperial whispers that no longer bothered to hide their disdain for human autonomy. He read them all with dispassion. A junior officer approached with a coded dispatch. From Nemeris, sir. Kale's hand tensed as he reached for it. He read it once, then again. The silence around him deepened. The message was short. Elira Voss. Arrested. Suspected of treason. Scheduled for execution. 0300. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He simply handed the pad back and walked toward his quarters. No one followed. Elira was already in a black site cell when the interrogator entered. The room was sterile, designed to break the mind through absence, of sound, of warmth, of time. She sat upright, her eyes clear. The interrogator wore no insignia, but his posture reeked of bureaucratic confidence. He placed a data slate before her, displaying intercepted messages, coded transmissions, some real, some fabricated. It didn't matter. The verdict had already been written. You know the penalty, he said, almost regretfully. Cooperation may lessen it. I've already been sentenced. The man stared at her, annoyed by her calm. We know who your husband is. You didn't seem to care when you chained me to a wall. That stung. He pressed a button. She winced as the voltage surged through the chair. He watched her in silence afterward, waiting for the scream. There wasn't one. You're brave, he said. He'll be alone soon. Perhaps you think that matters. I'm not the one who should be afraid of him. At 0300, she was led to the gallows erected at the center of Nemeris Square. It was ceremonial, a relic from a more primitive time, but effective in its barbarity. Troopers formed a perimeter. A silent crowd was herded into place, their eyes hollow, watching only because they knew the price of looking away. The broadcast began exactly on the hour. Imperial officials, cloaked in pomp and falsified righteousness, read out her crimes. Treason. sedition, harboring fugitives, undermining the state. Elira said nothing. The noose was placed around her neck. A cold wind stirred her hair. She looked into the camera, not to beg, not to plead, but to ensure someone, somewhere, would see her face. Then she was gone. In the silence that followed, the feed was distributed across hundreds of worlds. On the resolute ember, General Kale Voss watched it twice. Once to confirm it, twice to burn it into his soul. He turned to his lieutenant. How many nuclear-capable stealth cruisers do we have in dock? 3, sir. Bring them online. Distribute my battle algorithms to every fleet under my reserve command. Engage Black Protocol. The lieutenant hesitated. Sir, Black Protocol hasn't been authorized. It has now. Within 2 days, a listening post orbiting the gas giant Karth was incinerated by a solar ignition torpedo. No casualties. No warnings. Just ash. A week later, 4 slave freighters went dark near the orbit of Halgrin 5. No distress calls. Just silence. The messages began appearing across the Empire's secure network. Simple, sharp. Always the same. For Elira. Kale didn't seek negotiations. He didn't ask for trials. He issued no manifestos. His fury was not ideological. It was surgical. The Empire tried to control the narrative, called him a terrorist, a madman, a war criminal. But for every broadcast they made, another outpost went dark. He didn't strike where they expected. He hit where it hurt. Supply chains, bioresearch labs, AI development hubs. He crippled their infrastructure, and more terrifyingly, he did it with terrifying precision. Each blow calibrated, each silence deliberate, and he never appeared. Rumors whispered of his presence on the battlefield, unseen but orchestrating chaos like a god of vengeance. Former allies began disappearing from imperial politics. Some fled. Others were found dead in their own palaces, messages carved into marble walls. You hanged her. Now feel the rope. Among the Empire's high command, panic turned to infighting. Blame passed like a torch, burning everyone it touched. Yet still, they could not stop him. He was everywhere, and nowhere. When the Emperor finally spoke on the matter, it was in arrogance. The Empire does not answer to widowers, he said. It buries them. He would regret those words. On a moon cloaked in red mist, Kale stood alone at the edge of an old outpost once used by the Resistance. It had long since been abandoned, but he activated the transmitter anyway. His message was brief, personal. They thought they could take you from me, he said into the void. But you were never theirs to touch. He stared up at the stars. They'll learn that. The transmitter blinked once, sending his voice across encrypted channels, bouncing between satellites like ghosts. Then he turned, disappearing once more into shadow. Behind him, the stars flickered. And the war truly began. He's not attacking targets of strategic value, Dahl muttered, he's attacking their meaning. The aide beside him hesitated. Sir, there's been another, on Velcaron Prime. The eastern refinery is gone. Minimal military presence, but the destruction has halted production across 2 sectors. Dahl turned sharply. Was there a message? The aide nodded grimly. It was carved into the refinery wall. Same words. Burned with a plasma cutter. 8 feet tall. There was no longer any room for denial. Kale Voss was not just a rogue commander. He was now an insurgent force capable of destabilizing the Empire from within, and worse, he was inspiring others. On 6 fringe worlds, whispers of revolt had grown bolder. Human mining colonies had stopped paying tribute. Even some non-human systems, long compliant, were beginning to question the Empire's grip. In the ruins of a decommissioned spaceport on Andrus 7, Kale Voss met with his coalition. A dozen species sat at the crude circular table. Human mercenaries, exiled Dravari assassins, a synthetic mind encoded in a portable core. He listened more than he spoke. He'll strike the core worlds next, the Dravari said. He's building a path, not just destruction. Kale's eyes moved from face to face, quiet but present. When he finally spoke, the room leaned in as if the very walls were listening. They hanged her to frighten the rest of you. That fear fed their control. I don't need you to love her. I need you to understand this, they will do it again. To you. To your kin. Unless we become what they fear. There were no cheers. Only silence. Then slow nods. Determination. The kind that survived even after hope had long been killed. Kale didn't believe in symbols. But the Empire had made Illyria into one. And he would burn the stars to ensure they never forgot the cost. The attack on Velkaron's core archive came without warning. 4 cloaked cruisers breached planetary defenses in under 30 seconds. By the time orbital response teams activated, the archive had already collapsed into itself. A superheated, targeted fusion bomb had atomized 500 years of cultural history. Again, there was no broadcast. No demand. Just silence and flame. And within that silence, a swelling fury across Imperial leadership. The Emperor convened his high command in person for the first time in over a decade. His throne room, usually filled with velvet ritual, now vibrated with panic and calculation. Kale Voss is no longer just a fugitive, the Emperor declared. He is a myth in the making. And myths outlive armies. Admiral Sitha spoke boldly. Then we end the myth. Draw him out. We use bait. There was a pause. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. What kind of bait? His old battalion, she said. The 7th Human Vanguard. Many still loyal. We declare them enemies of the state. Force him to respond. Dahl interjected. We'll lose them. Sitha shrugged. Better to lose a blade than fall on it. The trap was set. On the outer moon of Charon, Kale's old unit was rounded up under fabricated charges and placed in holding cells rigged with explosives. The Empire leaked the operation on a black channel. Exactly as they intended. What they didn't expect was how fast he responded. Kale didn't come with a fleet. He came alone. A single stealth pod breached the moon's perimeter. No one saw it land. The cell walls ruptured from the inside. No explosion, no alarms. Only empty restraints and a data trail so clean it mocked the Empire's surveillance systems. The next morning, the High Command woke to find the Vigilance Spire, headquarters of Imperial intelligence, burned from within. Not bombed. Not shelled. Burned. With every operative inside incinerated in their sleep. On the walls, across 4 stories, 3 words had been painted in molten alloy. 4. Illyria. Still. Within days, rebellions flared across the outer colonies. Not organized, not yet, but furious and uncontrolled. The Empire's grip loosened not because of strength, but because fear had changed direction. Kale was no longer a man. He was a question the Empire had no answer for. Meanwhile, in a sealed chamber aboard the Ashen Crown, Kale stared at a star map littered with red fractures. Each point was a scar he had carved into the Empire's flesh. You could end this now, the synthetic intelligence said from its node. Demand the throne. The people would give it to you. I'm not interested in ruling ashes. Then what's left? Kale looked past the map, through the observation glass, where stars bled across the void. Illyria's voice. Still in my ears. That's what's left. Revenge won't bring her back. No, Kale said. But silence isn't peace. And the galaxy has been silent too long. The AI paused. Then your next target is obvious. Kale didn't respond. He didn't have to. His hand hovered over a single blinking coordinate, the capital, the Empire's heart, Fortress World Thalvaris, and he pressed it. The operation began with whispers. Navigation hubs failed. Communications relays shut down. Entire battle groups reported phantom signals and falsified orders. Ships collided in deep space. Drones turned on their handlers. Internal firewalls collapsed in perfect sync. Then the real assault began. 500 warships, all under Kale's command, appeared in orbit. They had been hiding in the shadows of moons, in asteroid caverns, waiting. Not to conquer, but to expose. Kale did not fire the first shot. He broadcast a message instead. To every civilian, every soldier, every administrator clinging to a regime built on fear. He stood alone, face to camera. Cold. Controlled. Unflinching. You've been told I'm a terrorist. That I seek chaos. But it wasn't me who executed a teacher for mercy. It wasn't me who silenced voices with boots and rope. I do not come to take your homes. I come to remind you that even the most brutal empires can bleed. He paused. And they will. Until they remember her name. The feed cut. Then the capital fell into chaos. Troopers defected. Civilians rioted. Automated defense systems refused to fire. Kale had spent months infecting the Empire's systems with recursive logic viruses, software Illyra had helped design. She had always believed knowledge was a weapon, and Kale had honored that belief in the most devastating way. The palace gates fell without a single direct assault. Kale entered alone. He found the Emperor in his throne, cloaked in pride even as fire painted the sky behind him. You think this victory will cleanse your grief? The Emperor spat. That burning my name will raise hers? Kale didn't answer. He simply drew a single pulse knife, the one Illyra had once carried. The Emperor lunged. It was brief. When it ended, Kale stood over the body, chest heaving. He didn't speak. He didn't gloat. He simply placed the knife on the throne, turned, and walked away. Outside, the crowds waited in silence. He looked out over them. Human, alien, hybrid. Broken. Bloodied. But free. I am done, he said. And he vanished into the smoke. Weeks later, rumors spread of a cloaked figure wandering the border worlds, helping rebuild, healing, not harming. But no one ever got close enough to be sure. Only a single message, carved into stone outside an orphanage on a distant planet, offered a clue. It read, "She was my calm. I was her fire. Now we are both the wind." And so the galaxy turned, scarred but wiser. Kale Voss was gone. But Illyra's name was never forgotten.